The clock on the dashboard mocked me. 11:48 p.m., another late-night delivery. I hated this job, especially these runs out to the boonies. I just wanted to be done. Done with the endless asphalt, the creepy quiet, and the feeling that someone was always watching. Tonight, it was worse. The further I drove, the more isolated it became. Streetlights vanished. Houses disappeared. Just endless trees, their branches like skeletal fingers reaching out in the dark. My headlights cut through the oppressive darkness, my only companions on this lonely stretch of road. My stomach growled, reminding me I hadn't eaten since lunch. Focus, I muttered to myself. Just deliver this last order and get paid. Then, food. Maybe even some sleep if I was lucky. The order had been huge, like ridiculously huge, enough to feed a small army. 5 pizzas, 3 orders of wings, 2 giant subs, and a mountain of sides. Who orders this much food at this hour? My tip had better be massive. The address led me further and further away from civilization. The GPS on my phone blinked, struggling to find a signal. The road narrowed, turning into a barely there dirt track. My headlights bounced off something in the distance. A house? It looked more like a shadow given form. My phone buzzed. A notification. "You're almost there!" it chirped. Easy for the GPS to say. It wasn't the one driving into the abyss. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, my knuckles turning white. The closer I got, the more unsettling the house became. It was a sprawling Victorian mansion, the kind you see in horror movies. Dark and imposing, with peeling paint and boarded-up windows. A shiver ran down my spine. This place had bad vibes, big time. My headlights flickered across a rusted wrought iron gate, its teeth bared like a predator. The nameplate was barely visible. Blackwood Manor. The name sounded vaguely familiar, but I couldn't place it. Not that it mattered. All I cared about was getting this delivery over with. As I pulled up the long, winding driveway, I noticed another car parked near the house. A beat-up old sedan, its paint faded and scratched. Another delivery driver, maybe? That was a relief at least. Safety in numbers, right? I got out of my car, the silence of the night pressing in around me. The air was thick with the smell of damp earth and something else I couldn't quite place. It smelled old, and not in a good way. I grabbed the delivery bag, its weight a reassuring presence in the eerie stillness. As I approached the other car, I saw someone sitting in the driver's seat. Their face was hidden in shadow. I knocked on the window. The figure jumped, startled. They rolled down the window and I saw a young woman, her eyes wide with fear. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. "You too, huh?" she said, her voice barely a whisper.
The first sign was a glass. It exploded, shattered into a million pieces right there in the kitchen. No warning, no reason. I stood frozen, staring at the mess. Goosebumps popped up on my arms. I was home alone. It was a Tuesday, after all. My roommate Sarah was at her pottery class. The only sound was the ticking of the old clock on the wall. Tick, tock, tick, tock. Each tick sent a shiver down my spine. I told myself it was just an accident. Maybe the glass was old, faulty, but deep down a cold dread started to spread in my stomach. I felt watched, uneasy. The hairs on the back of my neck prickled. I quickly cleaned up the glass, my heart pounding in my chest. Something wasn't right. I could feel it. I tried to shake off the uneasy feeling. I turned on all the lights in the apartment. The bright light usually chased away the shadows of doubt, but not tonight. I paced from the kitchen to the living room, my anxiety growing with each step. My mind raced, trying to find a logical explanation for the shattered glass, but every scenario felt flimsy, unconvincing. Exhaustion finally started to set in. I decided to call it an early night. I figured sleep would calm my nerves, help me make sense of the day's events. I locked the door, double-checking the deadbolt. Crawling under the covers, I pulled the blankets tight around me. I tried to ignore the feeling that something was off. Sleep couldn't come soon enough. Sleep didn't come. Instead, I found myself wide awake, listening to the silence of the night. Every creak of the floorboards, every groan of the old building made me jump. Then I heard it. A whisper, faint, almost indistinguishable from the rustling of leaves outside my window. But it was there, a soft, hushed sound like someone whispering my name from the foot of my bed. My breath hitched in my throat. My eyes darted around the room, trying to pierce the darkness. I told myself it was just the wind playing tricks on me, but deep down I knew better. The whispering continued, punctuated by the sound of scratching. It was coming from the inside of my closet door. My heart pounded against my ribs, a drumbeat of fear echoing in my ears. Morning came like a reprieve. Sunlight streamed through the window, chasing away the shadows of the night. The whispering, the scratching, it all seemed like a bad dream. Sarah, back from her pottery class, found me still huddled under the covers. I told her about the strange events of the previous night, about the glass, the whispers, the scratching. She just laughed. Sounds like you had a spooky night. Must have been the wind, you know how this old building is. She went about making coffee, completely unconcerned. Part of me wanted to believe her, to dismiss it all as my imagination running wild. But the fear lingered, a knot of unease in the pit of my stomach. The day wore on, and the strange occurrences of the previous night faded into the background. I threw myself into work, determined to forget the fear that clung to me. By evening, Sarah and I were back in our usual routine. We decided to order pizza, a familiar comfort after a long day. Sarah was browsing through Tinder, swiping left and right with a grimace. Another night, another series of unfortunate matches. She sighed. I laughed, trying to lighten the mood. But inside, that unsettling feeling from the previous night was resurfacing. The pizza arrived, and for a moment, everything felt normal again. The pizza delivery girl was different, not the usual guy we saw. This one was younger, maybe just a few years older than us. She had dark circles under her eyes and a nervous energy that set me on edge. She avoided eye contact, thrusting the pizza box towards me. "That'll be $12.50, she mumbled, her voice barely a whisper. I handed her the money, noticing a strange tremor in her hand. "Keep the change," I said, trying to offer a friendly smile. She just nodded curtly and hurried away. I closed the door, feeling a chill run down my spine. Something about her seemed off. We ate our pizza, Sarah filling me in on the latest Tinder disasters. But I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had settled over me after the delivery girl's visit. Hours passed. Sarah, exhausted from her day, decided to call it a night. I stayed up reading a book, trying to ignore the eerie silence that seemed to press in on me. The clock on the wall ticked away the minutes. Each tick was like a hammer blow to my nerves. I found myself constantly glancing at the door, half expecting to see the delivery girl standing there, her face illuminated by the dim hall light. Suddenly the doorbell rang. I froze, my heart leaping into my throat. It was late, way too late for visitors. Who could be at the door at this hour? I crept towards the door, my hand trembling as I reached for the peephole. Looking through, I saw only darkness. I strained to see, my breath catching in my chest. Then I saw them. Two figures shrouded in the shadows of the hallway. Their faces were obscured, but I could feel their eyes on me, burning into me through the peephole. The doorbell rang again, this time longer, more insistent. A wave of terror washed over me. I stumbled back from the door, my blood turning to ice in my veins. My mind raced, trying to process what was happening. Who were those figures? What did they want? Fear, raw and primal, took hold. I fumbled for my phone, my fingers shaking so badly I could barely dial 911. 911, what's your emergency? The operator's voice was calm, steady. I tried to explain, my words tumbling out in a jumbled mess. "There's people outside door, scared." The operator tried to calm me down, asking for my address. I managed to choke it out, my eyes glued to the door. The figures were still there, their outlines shifting in the dim light. "Okay, ma'am, we're sending someone over right now. Can you stay on the line with me?" Minutes later, the sound of sirens pierced the night. Blue and red lights flashed outside the window, casting eerie shadows on the walls. I stayed on the line with the operator, my heart pounding against my ribs like a trapped bird. Two police officers, a man and a woman, arrived at the door. They listened patiently as I recounted the events of the night, the whispering, the delivery girl, the figures at the door. They checked the hallway, their faces grim. There was no one there. No sign of the figures, no trace of anyone lurking outside. The officers exchanged a look, a mixture of concern and skepticism in their eyes. "Are you sure you saw someone, ma'am? Could it have been the wind, shadows playing tricks on you?" the male officer asked gently. I shook my head, my voice trembling. "No, I saw them. I know what I saw." The police left, assuring me they would patrol the area. Sarah, woken by the commotion, was shaken, but tried to rationalize the situation, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. That night, I barely slept. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle outside the window sent a jolt of fear through me. The figures at the door, their faces obscured by shadow, haunted my thoughts. The events of that night remain a chilling mystery. I never saw the figures again, and the whispers and scratching never returned. But the fear, the raw, primal fear of that night has never truly left me. It lingers still, a shadow in the back of my mind, a constant reminder that some things are best left unexplained.